So, I have a book.
You do. You know what? It's about time you mentioned it. I've been harassing you to mention this for a while.
I
We
know.
sell books for all kinds of publishers because we mentioned them on the podcast.
I know.
But you, Father Harrison, tell us about your book that you wrote.
So, here's why I've always been hesitant is I hate self-promotion.
Get into the grift, man. This is where the
I know.
money's at. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of money in Catholic books. Just like the money's just raining in, you know. No, so a good friend of mine, Michael Heinlein, him and I, over the summer, we were just thinking, there hasn't really been a lot in terms of response to the pandemic. Like, what's God like helping people to understand what is God doing? What's He saying to us? How are we supposed to respond right now? What are some ways our faith can help us through this? There just wasn't a lot. I know we talked about it on the podcast,
right?
But I mean, there really wasn't a ton out there. And so we kind of had this idea like, hey, maybe we should put this together, some articles. And then it kind of morphed into this whole, let's write a little booklet. It's not long. It's 100 pages, but it's not like it's big print. It's like a few sentences a page type of thing. And let's put this booklet, let's pitch it to our Sunday visitor, see if they're into it. And they were. And so we wrote it over the summer. Like, we already wrote it. And then we submitted the manuscript to them in September, and we signed the contract at the end of September. And it's supposed to come out November 6th. Now, there may be a few days delay because it's still with the printer, but it should be out. If it's not out today when this podcast drops, or the day after, because it usually drops Thursday night, but it should be out on the Friday. And if it's not, it'll be out in the next few days. So this is the booklet we wrote. So he and I co-wrote this together. We're co-authors. A little project, the first of 3 books that are coming out for me in the next few years.
Yeah.
And it's cheap.
How cheap is it?
It's $2 US per copy for a 15,000 word booklet, which is pretty good. The idea for this pricing is simple. We really, there's not much to be made on such a small on a project like this, and we did this as a service to the church so that as many people as possible could buy it, so that parishes maybe even be willing to buy it so that they could give it out to their parishioners. And there's stuff like even bulk pricing. You can get it even cheaper the more you buy, right? So the idea is you don't just buy maybe one, you buy a few so you can hand them out to friends, to parishioners. Our parish has decided to buy enough for all of our households and to give them out to all of our parishioners.
Nice.
Because also my time has gone into this, so I think the parish deserves something for my work
Sure,
from parish time, I guess.
Yeah.
But and actually I've had I just ordered 1,200 for my diocese already for different parishes in my diocese. And so that's why we did this. And so it's $2. You can get it on the physical book is not available on Amazon yet. I'm not sure it's up there, but you can go to osvcatholicbookstore.com. and you can order it on there. If you order $20 worth of the booklets, it'll be for free. It'll be free shipping. So, and if you order it from the OSV site, you also get a free CD of Christian classical music. So some really beautiful Christian music, not praise and worship, but good instrumental stuff. So, and it's free. You get it for free. So we have copies of that CD going out with people to OSV. So I'm excited, nervous. It's weird to have a book out there.
Yeah.
I feel weird being a published. I now can put in my name on Amazon and find it, which is kind of cool. It's also just $2 on Kindle. I think it's about $2.80 Canadian for those who are in Canada, and we're sending them out everywhere. So OSV's Priest magazine, they're getting a free copy. All the subscribers with it, because Priest would be those are great people to reach out to because they might want to buy some for their parishes, right? Every bishop from the States is getting a copy. And we're actually working on getting a copy to every Canadian bishop as well. So that, they can help promote it. And we actually got a lot of great endorsements, including Archbishop Kurtz, Bishop Perry, Lenny DiLorenzo from Notre Dame. A lot of people really kind of on board with it. So it's been kind of neat and cool to see so much support for this project, and we're really excited.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You got a preview copy?
I am not going to read it until I have the pages in my hands.
But did you?
Because we know your opinions about digital reading.
But hey, listen. If you listen in this one, because it's a shorter book, if people want the Kindle version, you have my blessing.
Yeah, there we go.
You have my blessing.
Desperate times.
But did you see the dedication page?
I did. So you sent me the digital thing. I saw it was dedicated to me. At least you're part of it.
Yeah.
Which was super sweet. I was like, I got a little emotional.
a little verklempt.
Yeah, exactly. No, honestly, it was really, really cool. So I appreciate it. And then all the sentiments you echoed, I echoed them back in that. Absolutely.
Go. Yeah, I mean, it was partially because actually a lot of my ideas that I expressed in the book came from the podcast, like working this out and stuff. So I was really super grateful for that. So I wanted to, they're like, oh, we actually have some room for dedication. Do you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, cool. And that's also weird. It's like, oh, you have to think about these things. Mm-hmm. But we still have some news about this booklet for those who listen to Clerically Speaking.
Oh, right. This is good.
So first, for those of you who have been generously donating for a while, especially those who've been giving to our $10 tier, if you've been giving to the $10 tier or you want to upgrade to the $10 tier, you will get a free copy of this booklet mailed to you from the podcast. Okay, so make sure your addresses and stuff are updated, and we'll slowly get those out to you over time. Once Riley and Nick get the physical copies, and there's just a small thank you to everyone for that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I know what some people are thinking. They're having nightmares, flashbacks, PTSD, back to when we promised people stickers.
I know.
And some people didn't get stickers for like 9 months. Okay.
This is why we hired Riley.
Yes, that was before Riley.
Yes.
Now producer Riley helps with these sort of things.
Exactly.
So we can promise that, one, if you don't get them soon, it won't be our fault. But two, Riley is much more organized on top of things than we are. So let me calm your fears as far as that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just again, we actually don't push the Patreon every week because it's there. Like we do pay Nick and Riley for their work, which we really appreciate because it's a massive help. But and a bit of equipment stuff we need over time. But remember that every extra bit from our Patreon, Father Anthony and I don't get a penny from it.
Nope.
We give it away to religious orders. Yeah. So just remember, if you're giving and we don't need to use it all, we will give it away to religious orders who do need it and who are doing good work and who need help. So we don't do this for ourselves. We just want to make sure that Riley and Nick get a just wage for the work they're doing and that we can, afford to pay for the upkeep of this podcast.
Right. And we may need to get you some new lighting. Might spend some of that Patreon money on new lighting. You are in darkness. I am in light for those who are watching on YouTube now.
I actually have a lamp over here now to light me up a bit more. My room, my rectory, I'm recording from my rectory, and it's just what it is. I don't know. So that's the first thing. The second thing, we do have a little bit of a contest. And so, you can get into it now if you get the Kindle version. But one way to help a book get promoted on Amazon is reviews. So we're putting out a contest. This is open to anybody who listens, or you can tell your friends. You can tell your enemies too, because Jesus says we must love our enemies and therefore help them win prizes.
Yes.
And this is open to anyone, Patreon supporters. If you can get the free copy and you can get this, we're going to send out 10 free, personally signed and like a little note from me copies of the booklet with some stickers to 10 random winners who put a review on Amazon. The only thing to help us know that you were trying to participate in the contest is just mention Clerically Speaking somehow. And it could be a goofy one. The only thing I just ask is don't make it a bad one. I hope.
Don't get Harrison in trouble.
But also, don't lie. So if you really didn't like it, just maybe don't participate in the contest because you wouldn't want the booklet anyways because, whatever. So that's the thing. So we're going to do that for people, and we'll give it a few weeks. You can, like I said, you can get the Kindle version now, but for 10 winners, you'll get a personally signed copy with a little note from me and some stickers to 10 people who leave a review. If we get more, if we get less, we'll do less. But if we get more, I'll just randomly pick names.
Cool.
So so that's what's going on with me. So I'm getting ready for some media appearances, obviously. I got to start following up with people I sent preview copies for to get them to start promoting it through their social media platforms, their podcasts and stuff like this. But there's a lot to do. I'm like, holy smokes, this is it's an involved process. All the while, I was also finishing the second round of edits on my book that's coming out next year with Pauline. And I was like, and just a ton of stuff going on at the parish, like just a lot. And I'm like, I've had it up to here. I'm just ready to kind of. I'm going on vacation in 10 days, and I can't.
Oh,
wait.
Good. You need
For a week, and I have only taken a week of holidays this year, so I am absolutely getting away for a week. I can't really go anywhere, but I'm going to go to like Victoria for a few days and just do nothing. So yeah, so that's what's going. So that's going on with me. So I encourage you, go to Kindle if you want to, or your other digital readers. You can download there, $2. I mean, go there right now. Like, no, just hold on a second before you go for it. Go to Amazon or to Google or wherever you get your ebooks. It's $2. It's
pull off the side of the road if you're listening while driving. Be safe.
It's cheaper than a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Beautiful.
So, and this will feed your soul. I mean, coffee is a good thing, but feeding the soul is even a better thing. So feed your soul. Go to Amazon right now, get the Kindle, or go to osvcatholicbookstore.com and order some for yourself, for your friends, for your parish, and give them out. And that's the extent of my grift.
There you go. Good job.
It's not a grift. Like I said, we're not really making a ton off of this. So we're just happy to do this. And I think from what I've heard from people so far, they've found it really helpful in, I've already heard back from people who are Protestant, agnostic, who've been reading it and been finding it very helpful for them. So I hope you enjoy it.
Good.
Welcome to Clerically Speaking. I'm Father Harrison.
I'm Father Anthony.
All right.
So I'm in a tricky situation here in the United States because we're recording this on Election Day. When the podcast comes out, the election will be over. So I'm in a tricky situation. So I'm simply going to say, I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords and hope they have a long reign and prosper and leave me alone. So that's all I have to say about that whole process. Also, okay, so this is just stupid. This is stupid. So I have a super old, not super old. I have an iPhone 6S. I think they're up to like 12 right now.
Yeah.
And it's so old that even the OtterBox on it has broken off, and everything was just a mess. So I finally took it out of its old broken OtterBox. I cleaned it up. I put a new case on it, and it's like, boom, new phone. I keep looking at it like, look, it's basically like I have a new phone. Yeah, I know the battery still only lasts 12 minutes, but it feels like a new phone. So I was very proud of that project. I will say this. Apparently, OtterBoxes have also changed in like 6 years since I got my last one.
Yeah.
Really hard to open. That's why I spent the last, as I was recording another podcast and getting ready for this one, the entire time I wasn't paying any attention. I was trying to open this freaking OtterBox. So now that's in there, it's going to be in there forever. So basically I got a new phone. There you go.
Maybe it's time to upgrade.
Here's the thing. I'm still on my family's plan. I don't feel like pushing it, Like, I don't want to be like, hey, can I get the upgrade? Or did we get an upgrade? I'm just going to, whatever happens. Listen, I get unlimited free data because my parents still pay for it. So I'm not going to be like, hey, can I get the new upgrade? Not going to push that.
I mean, okay, I'm not trying to, but doesn't your parish cover your phone?
No.
Really?
No, I don't know if they do or not. I'm also really bad at knowing what kind of perks I get.
Oh.
I know they'll cover my groceries, but sometimes I just pay for them anyway. Sometimes I turn it. So I'm really bad at that money management stuff as a priest. I should be better. I'm bad at keeping receipts for tax purposes. Right. Which is why I pay so much in taxes. Yes, priests pay taxes. So I'm just really bad at that.
Huh.
Yeah.
My parish, well, they pay up to $100 a month of my phone plan, because phones are super expensive in Canada because there's no competition in our networks. So there's 3 networks, but they all just do the same thing. So, it's actually quite expensive up here to get everything. But yeah, no, my parish pays for my cell phone because I'm using it 99% of the time for parish stuff, and I don't have a landline at directory.
Oh, it's interesting because I'm using mine 99% of the time to watch wrestling news videos. So,
there we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Summa then.
Yeah.
The Summa Theologica was St. Thomas Aquinas' summary of theology, and the Summa Tweetologica is our summary of things we found interesting on Twitter. And the funny thing is, I think we've both been not on Twitter much because we actually don't have a ton to choose from. And actually, so I'm using this as an opportunity. One of our listeners put out a question to us through Twitter. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I can't dedicate. I don't think it's worth dedicating a whole episode to. Like, it'd be hard to do a whole half-hour presbyteral exhortations on it, but it's a good question that I think a lot of people don't know a lot about. Yeah. He said, would you be willing to talk about, this is from Drew Hepler, at D.A. Hepler. Would you be willing to talk about the idea of quote-unquote retired priests? If being a priest is your vocation, then retiring from the priesthood would be equivalent to retiring from parenthood. It changes, but it's not something you can retire from because it's not a job or a career. Shouldn't the priesthood be the same? This is my son's godfather and I were talking about this last night, and I'd love to hear your take. So yeah, it's a good question because it's true. Priests do retire, but when we say that they retire, it's not that they retire from the priesthood. You don't stop. It's not like you hit 70 or 75, or every diocese has their own retirement age, and you stop being a priest, right? It's like, you're like, oh, 75? Yeah, done with that. Sorry, I just ripped off my collar. No, it's that they retire from active ministry, right? That the workload that has come with being a priest comes to an end. Most retired priests, though, still say mass every day. And they pray, obviously, and they just try to have a slower life. It's kind of like what Pope Benedict's doing, right? Like, you go into it could be a time. I guess the way I look at it, it ought to be a time for greater prayer and intercession for the church in your later years. Yeah. It's a bit more monastic of a life. You're often, in most dioceses, they have retirement houses, not ours, but I know a lot of bigger dioceses have retirement houses for the priest to live in. They do have a pension to live off of usually, so that the diocese isn't responsible for it. But here's the interesting thing. It's like, a diocese is actually required by canon law to make sure a priest has a place to live and stuff like that when he retires. It's the same thing like when bishops hit 75, they have to put in a resignation letter. They have to retire from actively governing a diocese. So in a way, I guess you could say it's retire from the act of governance.
Yeah.
Just one more thing is, but at the same time, actually, a lot of retired priests, what they do, because if they love being priests, they will help out in parishes. They'll do supply work for priests when they want to go on holidays. Sometimes they'll even live in a parish and just kind of take on a little bit of ministry, but not take on too much active stuff. Because most priests love their being a priest and they want to continue to do priest stuff, and so they want to help out that way. But the finance meetings, the pastoral council meetings, the parish politics, that comes to an end, and it's right and just that it does at some point in life.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like at my parish, there's a retired guy who lives in one of our rectories.
Yeah.
And he'll say one or two of our daily masses, one or two of our public masses. Or if, for example, let's say I get 2 funerals on a day, which is a very possible thing that can happen. Maybe I ask him to take my daily mass. So we don't try to ask him too much because we don't want to, impose on him too much, but he always says, yes, that sort of thing. I know another retired priest who still very active and able, and he'll just drive around the diocese doing what you said, taking masses for people. So like that will be a thing that happen. Also in my diocese, we have this fun thing called retired with assignment. So basically a guy gets to a certain age, he's willing to help out the diocese, so he takes a lesser pay and still gets an assignment. So that's a thing, retired with assignment for some of our guys. God bless it, because like, a lot of our guys still really enjoy doing the whole pastor thing, and they can still do it. So they'll be retired with assignments sometimes.
Yeah. And there's also, like, you have to remember too, like when you get to a certain age, your health obviously starts to become a bigger issue. And so you need to be away from a parish. You can't, like, the idea of being a pastor at a later age, like when you're 80 and being a pastor, it's doable. Some guys can do it, but it's pretty rare because they don't have the energy level.
Right.
And stuff like that. And so it
all depends on the guy.
It all depends on the guy, but it's imagine if a bishop was still governing a diocese at like 85, right? Probably wouldn't be able to do a great job at it at that age, right? It might be tough. So it's important. Everyone deserves some rest in life from the active stuff. And canon law actually requires retirement ages from active ministry, but you're still a priest in good standing. They're probably saying mass every day. I remember actually in my diocese, oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting. Monsignor Hanley, he had Parkinson's. He was like a pillar of this diocese. Did so much good stuff in our diocese. Built things up in a massive way. And he wasn't at a retirement home. He was at one of a care home for elderly with conditions in our diocese. But a priest would go there to say mass every Sunday, and he would celebrate. He couldn't celebrate on his own, but he would like put his hand out and be shaking. But at the celebration moments, he just loved being a priest so much, and he was a priest to the end. It was a really powerful, beautiful thing to see someone love his priesthood so much, even in sickness and retirement. It was really powerful. So.
Yeah, and I know another retired guy who didn't want to take an assignment, but the diocese said, "Hey, can you mentor this new pastor?" So that's what he does. He helps out, and he helps mentor this new pastor. Because a lot of guys, they're done with like actually doing all of that sort of work, but they are happy and eager to hand on what they know to new guys. So,
and that's actually a really good idea, because when you're a pastor, you're just kind of thrown in the deep end.
Right. So they become almost like priest consultants.
Exactly. Yeah. So good. There we go.
So this tweet is from Jake at Jake of Online. And he says, maybe this is just me, but I think that priests should spend more time preaching about the sins of their parish rather than the sins of the culture. So I like this because this is something that if you're a priest and you're online, or if you're a priest and you watch the news and you're in touch with some of the stuff that's going on in the world, this is a great temptation to preach about what's out there instead of what's in front of you. And I am not exempt from this. No priest is exempt from this. But it's important to remember that homilies aren't just for people out there. Like if you're a priest at your parish, the homily is for your parish. And we've talked about this before, but what's going on in your parish, that's what you need to preach about. And every community is going to be different. Like, my community up in Newcastle, PA, is a different community than some of my buddies who live closer to the city. There's different cultures. There's different experiences. My parish is going through different things. And so I have to preach to the people in front of me. And sometimes parishioners will say, like, you should preach about this more. You should preach about that more. And sometimes that's really helpful information. Sometimes people have good insights about that. But sometimes they just want you to throw the preaching hammer at something out there. Now, I will say this. The wider culture in an area is going to affect the local culture. So you have to, balance that as well. But primarily, you have to work on like what is going on right in front of me. So ideally, the priest knows what's going on in his community and can preach to that. And so it might not mean the priest is touching on the big issues that you see on the news because your area is just different. Now, and also, with a lot of like stuff that's been going on in America lately, it is important to preach about things that are happening culturally, because Catholics in your local area are wondering, like, what is going on? How does the church respond to this? So it's not to say that you always ignore that culture, but your local culture comes first in preaching.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you want, you see, again, it kind of goes back to something we were talking about last week. If you want to change the larger culture, that needs to start at home, right? And so that means it starts with people's hearts. So if you're in maybe a wealthy parish, for example, I think it would be important to say, like, hey, we need to actually not just give money away, but we also need to do concrete action for the poor, right? Those are important things that need to happen. Maybe we're in a parish where orthodoxy isn't so important, but some other things are. So maybe that's okay. That's where your preaching has to go, to gently guide people to the faith, into a deeper appreciation of the faith, right? And just like all other, like every parish is different, and every parish's needs are different. And the whole point of preaching is not to spit, because here's the thing: we want to hear about the big cultural issues because they don't force us to change our heart. Right? Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, amen, Father. Yes, thank you for speaking the truth to that, because you didn't make me have to challenge my heart. And that's spiritually dangerous. And I would be a horrible pastor if I didn't invite people to challenge their heart more. So it's vital. But that's only possible, and it takes time. Like, I'll be honest, like, it's actually one of the hardest things for me preaching right now is how hard it is to get to know my parishioners because of COVID. It's just the normal weekly activities, like not having the Sunday coffee is a real difficulty, because that's like a great place just to get to know people. And I'm being careful. Like, I've done a few house visits and stuff like that, but I'm actually trying to be careful I think it's important I be careful because I have my parish, the whole island, the whole diocese is very retirement oriented. So a lot of people move there, retire. I want to be very careful about not being a vector to to anyone, right? Now, thankfully, cases are doing decent we're doing quite well on the island, but at the same time, like, I want to be careful about that. So I'm being hesitant about taking visit appointments right now. Not because I don't want to, but I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. So it's hard. And so it's hard to think about what do people need to hear.
Yeah.
And then listen, there are times where you know quite away. Like, I got a few up my sleeves where I'm like, yeah, this will be a good homily one day for this parish. Yeah. And it'll come. And it'll be good. Sometimes it's to encourage and to edify. Sometimes it's to challenge and to bring repentance.
Yeah.
And you need both, right? So, but you need to know the hearts of your people. And a good priest, a good pastor will take the time to know that so that he can, because the whole point of the homily is it's a liturgical act through which Jesus is speaking to the people in front of you. He's not speaking to Jesus. It's not like we're on a pulpit to all of North America.
Yeah, no.
We're on a pulpit in front of the people in front of us, and that's who we need to be speaking to.
Yep.
So, yeah, cool. All right. Well, let's head over to some presbyteral exhortations. I like how my voice kind of sort of gave out as I said that. All right. We'll see how this goes here. I'll be honest, it's been like super crazy busy at the parish. There's a lot to do. Didn't realize how much there is to do here. So there's a lot of catching up to do, a lot of stuff going on the last few weeks. So I'm a little behind. Like, I'll be honest, my brain feels like mush right now. Not because of bad stuff per se, but there's just been a lot to take on, and it's not bad. It's good. It's just the brain's a little mushy. So I had a priest friend.
Whomst among us does not have a mushy brain?
Yeah,
in November of 2020.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and so it's been hard to even study and read the last week or so.
Yeah,
but I want to kind of reflect on my homily from All Saints Day. I'm gonna pull a U, and we're gonna just do 2 weeks in a row of homily presbyteral exhortations, because I actually kind of liked it.
Yeah, good.
I kind of liked my homily, and I got a ton of good feedback on it. And so it was for the homily for All Saints, and essentially I want to reflect on the question I want to reflect on a question that I think is vital and important to the Christian life. It kind of actually, as I've been pondering this a little bit, in some ways, it attaches to one of our earlier episodes on Catholic atheism, right? This is one of our early ones. Like, I actually kind of like referring back to early ones because the early ones, that's when we were excited and we're young and naive in the podcasting world, and we're just getting all the good stuff out right away. And then it's like, oh wait, I have to come up with more content, right? But it was a good episode around how we don't live as Catholics, and we actually don't live as if God exists. And I think this question kind of dovetails nicely with that one, because it was the question that kept on confronting me. Now, a little preamble. I've been delving into a lot of stuff from Communion and Liberation, which is an ecclesial movement of the church founded by Luigi Giussani, a priest of Italy. And I've done school of community. Like, I've been part of that movement in some like unofficial ways over the time. And I really like Giussani's writings, religious sense. Is it possible to live this way? The risk of education. Like, he's written a lot of great stuff on these topics and on the topic of what it means to be human. And so my homily definitely came out of that because, well, okay, there's two parts. The first is actually something personal. As I was watching some talks on Giussani and stuff like this, I came across a fact that kind of was a convicting factor for him in seminary. When he was in seminary, they were doing Christology or something like that, and he just came with like an overwhelming awareness. The incarnation is real. It's a fact. It's not just, it's the fact. If you will.
Yeah.
Right? It's the fact. It's the thing upon which all of life hinges around. God has taken on our flesh. And it became for him the motivation to everything. suddenly his whole life became oriented around the person and mission of Jesus, and his priesthood was meant to kind of be around this. And he wanted people to desire God again. And like part of his whole foundation of communion liberation was this idea of we need to speak to human desire today, because desire is such an important aspect of faith, and we need to find new methods to speak the gospel to people today, so that they can come to the truth of the gospel. But I was really struck by this idea: the incarnation is a fact, and I mean, like, it's not just a fact; it's the fact, right? It's everything. And I found that question confronting me in beautiful ways. And it was funny. It's a confrontation, but wasn't antagonistic. It was a confrontation of love to something deeper, right? And so that question just kept on haunting me and haunting me and haunting me and just hanging over my head. And I just haven't been able to let it go. And then as I started to prepare my homily for All Saints, the question was still there. But I approached it differently, because when we talk about All Saints, we talk about the communion of saints, we talk about how good it is to live the life of holiness, why holiness is so important, the universal call of holiness, yada, yada, yada. These are all important things, right?
Yes, I agree.
But in a way, the saint is the person who recognizes the fact of the incarnation, right? And so, but the way the question got framed for me, and the way I proposed it to my people when I preached on it, was that the saint confronts us with this 3-word question: is Christianity real? Is Christianity real? I'll fight you in on that in a second. But when I'm asking this question, I'm not asking it as a true or false statement. It's not an analytics. It's not a black and white true or false thing, because it's not really meant to be a question around whether it actually is. Rather, it's meant to be an existential question, right? Is my life in accord with the fact of the incarnation? Does it take into account the fact that God has taken flesh? And is my life properly responding to this? So when I'm asking, is Christianity real, it really becomes an existential examination of the heart. Am I living am I living according to the fact that Christ has become flesh, that he died, that he rose again, that he is now sitting at the right hand of the Father? Am I living like there's a reason I'm saying, is Christianity real, rather than is Christianity true? Why do you think I don't know. I should shut up for a second. Why do you think, because I have more to say, but why do you think I would, like, what's the difference between reality and truth?
Yeah. I think what you're getting at is another way of approaching it is Jesus a fact or a person? I think it's very easy to slip into this idea that the life, death, and resurrection was something that was true and happened, but now has no effect on the cosmos or on my life.
Right.
And I think it makes sense to my brain that your brain linked this with All Saints.
Yeah.
Because it's there we see the ultimate destiny of us.
Right.
Right? My fun way I begin every All Saints Day homily is a rhetorical true or false question, because we all know there's nothing worse than when a priest asks you a question in the homily and actually expects you to respond. It's always awkward. It's always a bad idea. Sometimes I'll do it with kids' masses. But other than that, it's a terrible idea, okay?
Yeah.
But here's a true or false question. There are only saints in heaven.
False.
Okay, not including God.
Oh, wait, sorry. Are you saying
true or false? There are only saints in heaven.
Well, true. I guess I was thinking of it differently, like that there can be saints on earth as well.
Okay.
That's the way
in
I was
heaven,
thinking of it. Yes.
You have to be a saint.
Yes. True.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Sorry. You would get the false answer, not from getting something wrong, but getting something too complicated in your brain. The point, which has now been muddied completely by Father Harrison's crazy brain, is that there are no sinners in heaven.
That's right.
Only saints.
They are sinners who have become saints.
Right, but they're not sinners anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Stop ruining my point. There are only saints in heaven. It's the point.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Jeez.
Yes. I'm
okay.
sorry.
But like that.
Oh my gosh.
Ultimately, we end up in one of two places: heaven or hell.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we either accept God or reject Him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And yet we live as if the only thing that matters is the problems of the day or of the near future.
Right.
An example, with all the energy that I'm sure is still being spilled over in American politics.
Right.
People live as if this earthly order is the only and ultimate order in the universe.
Right.
Whereas when you remember about all saints and our ultimate destiny, it's like, wait a second. If God really died for my sins, if God really became flesh, if I'm really a new creation because of baptism, that changes everything. And even if my life to most people seems rather ordinary, I either have a family or I'm a single person or I'm this or I'm that, it needs to energize our entire way of being. And that can't be just a set of facts that we remember. That has to be a present reality now.
Yeah.
So a long way to answer your question is that the dichotomy you're pointing out is this something that energizes our life now, or just something that we kind of know but don't do anything about?
Yeah, and it's also, and if the incarnation is true and the resurrection is true, if these are events that have happened in history, it means that God is now encounterable through reality.
Yeah.
Right? And when I say reality, I mean like the things in my life that are placed in front of me each and every day. Right? Everything I am, my choices to do the dishes, to clean, to tell my spouse I love them, to spend time with my kids, to being a priest, to whatever your thing is. Every moment is an opportunity to acknowledge the reality of Christ. And this is the idea. So the reason I'm saying reality over truth, I'm not saying truth isn't important here, but that's why I'm saying it's an existential question. It's not a question of truth and false, because if it was just about is Christianity true, then it's just like it becomes an abstraction, right? Jesus is an idea. Like you said, it's an event that happened in the past that has no bearing on me today. And so I accept the truth of it, but I don't. So there's a disconnect between life and doctrine, right?
And we're playing with words a little bit here, aren't we?
Because absolutely.
Reality has to be truth, just so in case anyone's got that.
Oh, no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Truth isn't. I mean, truth is always in accord with reality, but I'm using reality more in the sense of my reality, not what I create it to be, but what I encounter every day, what I open my heart to be every day, to find Jesus in it and to choose Him every day. And so the question, is Christianity real, becomes, as you're kind of saying, the motivating factor of my life. It becomes everything. Because that is the question that helps me judge the situation. Like, I'll give you a small example of this, actually. It actually was on Sunday morning when I was preaching all these homilies. I'm waking up and I'm really groggy, which shouldn't have happened on the day the clocks went back. But I was really groggy. I'm kind of stumbling into the kitchen, making my coffee and stuff like that. And sitting down on the couch for a moment, drinking my coffee. And I'm like, I got to pray. And then, the excuses start coming up. I'm too tired. I'm not really into it. I can't really focus yet, blah, blah, blah. And then I asked myself the question, is Christianity real? And I said, yes. And I said, I have to pray, because it's the only reasonable response to the moment. I don't have to pray at all times, but I need to pray now because I need to do morning prayer. I have to answer with my life and my choices right now. So it becomes the clarifying question to my actions, my desires, my everything. This is the whole point of it, is it's meant to say, yeah, everything I do comes out of this. Now, it doesn't mean at the same time, like, we shouldn't be standing around every day asking ourselves this question 500 times a day. It doesn't need to be a conscious question, but I do think it's a good question through which we can examine our conscience, right? At the end of the day, where I can say, did I live the reality of Christianity today? Did my actions? Because I think, like, sometimes we get so bound up with the ideas of, like, am I following God's will? Am I Am I doing enough to be a saint? Am I avoiding sin enough? Like all these things we can get so self-doubting about. But if we ask ourselves at the end of the day, it's like, well, yeah, but I did the dishes because that's what I had to do. That's what I'm supposed to do in the moment. Well, that's how you become a saint. You've chosen Christ in that moment, right? And so it becomes almost an intuitive question. And as you ask it of yourself, maybe every day at the end of the day as an examination, or maybe in those moments when you're facing deeper temptations, it's a great clarifying question. It starts to just seep into your soul, right? It starts to seep into your soul. I have another point, but I can tell you want to say something.
Yeah, because it's not just something that affects our outward actions either. It also affects how we see God and ourselves. Is Christianity real? Well, if it is, and if I'm going to live my life in accordance with that truth, then I really have no business not forgiving myself for something I've already brought to confession.
Right.
If Christianity is real, then God is not in competition against me. If anything, he is emphatically and ridiculously for me.
Right.
Heaven is not something I have to grasp for and cling to by myself. It is something that God wants to lift me up into.
Yeah.
If Christianity is real, then I can't see the people around me as enemies in the strictest sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I think what it comes down to is like, okay, yeah, I think there's a temptation. Okay, so doing your examination of conscience and seeing how your actions go, like that's a difficult thing, but I think it's easier than accepting that God loves you and is for you and is not trying to trip you up and trick you. And his tests aren't like how we normally think of tests, and his fatherhood is not how we see earthly fatherhood. Like, to face it to face the reality of God's love. And just to plug what I preached about as well, was the saint simply lives in the truth that God loves them, and loves everyone around them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so this is the thing. It becomes the acceptance of this fact. Because and I like it because the reason I like the question too is it's a question that doesn't just ask truth claims. It's a question that answers the question, the claims and questions that come from existing. Right. So they touch experience as well. It's not just experience.
Right.
It's not how is Christianity real for me? It's not this self-serving question. It is an objective question, but it's an objective question that wants to include my experience. That says this is something. It's not everything, but it's something that needs to be taken into account. And so, but it also helps clarify that when our feelings and other experiences and thoughts can take over and want us to push the question to the side, it says, well, no, actually, like it can be a clarifying force to say those things don't matter in this regard right now. So like it can help you say my feelings in this regard actually don't matter right now because like I didn't feel like praying when I prayed on that Sunday morning, but I did it because I knew that's what I had to do, right? Out of love. I didn't do it out of duty. I do it out of love because Christianity is real. And so like it becomes the motivating question. Now the thing that happens though, and I think this is important to kind of focus in on for a second is and the reason I kind of preached it is I find the question is avoided. Now the question is avoided for a lot of reasons. One of them is obviously that we don't think of the question. It hasn't been proposed before. Okay. Absolutely. 100% happens. But there's a lot of other reasons we avoid the question. If I take it seriously, then Jesus is going to demand something of me I don't want to give up. Absolutely. And I get it to an extent. I'm going to, we buy into the fake idea that I'm going to be less of myself. Right? I'll be less free. right? Because freedom, as I really believe it to be, is to do what you want, when you want, how I want. That's real freedom. And so to submit my life to another is the opposite of freedom. Or at least that's a lie we sell ourselves on.
I'm always reminded of the demoniac who, when sees Jesus approaching, have you come here to torment us?
Yeah.
It's an acknowledgement of the reality of God, but not understanding the heart of it.
Yeah,
have
exactly.
you come here to torment us? That's when the question of holiness is placed right in front of us. The enemy is trying to tell you, no, he's come here to torment you.
Yeah. And then as Jesus says in John 10:10, it's one of my favorite quotes, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Right. But I came that they may have life and have an abundance. And I'll get to that more in a second. But that's the idea. The evil one wants us to actually kind of submit to the ideas of steal, death, and destruction. That is that that's what he wants for us. He wants us to be destroyed, annihilated. But God wants us to have life. And so the thing is, though, we give in to the evil one when we refuse to ask the question. And so what it does is it starts to create in us a mindset about what Christianity ought to be. Christianity now has to be a hobby, just an add-on of my life. It's not a way. It's a little thing I do on Sundays, and maybe a little thing I do at night when I say my prayers, and I do a little nice thing for someone once in a while. But what the problem with that is that it creates in us because really what's happening is it's creating a self-serving attitude of I don't want to actually give of myself, so actually I just want this. It creates a desire for Christianity that's therapeutic, that is comfortable, that gives me a nice message on Sunday, that affirms the choices I've made in my life to not be confronted with the question. The problem with that is that that's not Christianity. And it never was, right? We want something that says it's okay. Like, honestly, if we're really honest with ourselves, I think a lot of not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people, it's like, I want to be okay to coast through life. I want to just, it's okay to survive, to get, I got to do a few big bucket list items in my life. And, I got this and I got a nice retirement now. And that's all that matters. And that's living, right? I'm not saying that these are bad things to have per se, but when we allow, like I said that one of my homies, I said, the word that breaks my heart the most as a priest is when I hear people say, I am content. Because you've destroyed desire. Because this is the thing. The devil wants to destroy our desire for God. And this comfort Christianity wants to destroy our desire for God. It wants to undermine it. And so we then struggle to see God because we actually haven't desired him in the first place. Because we haven't been asking ourselves the question, because that question is rooted in love. And so we coast, we survive, and we just want something that says that I was justified in not taking a risk in my faith. But the question, is Christianity real, is actually the question that impels us to live, right? Again, I came that they may have life and have it in abundance. So it's not just that here's a little bit of living, but Jesus actually wants us to live fully, to live to live completely, and not just life, but in an abundant way, because this is God's way of being. But to do it, it means you have to give of yourself. You have to give of yourself. And yes, that involves sacrifice because we are fallen beings. But the core of it is to give yourself away, and that is revealed to us on the cross. How is love revealed? It is in a self-giving way through a crucified love. This is the risk of love that God takes on us, and he invites us into this adventure. Life becomes an adventure. It becomes something worth being lived. It becomes something worth being pursued because I am allowing and I'm willing to take the risk of allowing myself to be challenged by that question. And so, yes, it does challenge us. It says you got to give something up sometimes. You do have, but not because it's going to make you less, but because actually you're going to be the person God created you to be, right? But it's also going to inspire us, right? It's going to inflame our desire. And that's the key to all of this. The question actually gives the question, is Christianity real? Because it's a question I've been struggling with for years. I see the death of desire in our world. it's so easy to see, and it breaks my heart. I've been like wrestling over why can't even Christians desire anymore. And I'm thinking to myself more and more, this is the question that lights the flame. So that when I take the risk of love, which by the way, God did first in the risk of the cross, God risked death for us because that's the length love is willing to go for. No love is okay with the status quo, with being content. Show me a marriage where they are content with the level of love they had on the first day as they do on the 50th year. If that's the case, the marriage never survives, right? Because it can't survive that long. When you coast, you run out of gas, right? When you're treading water, your arms get tired. Coasting eventually kills. It just delays it, right? So we got to make the risk. We got to take this risk of going and inflaming our desire so that what happens now is the question now starts to put me to stop looking into the ethereal like of eternal life, which is an important thing to obviously that is our ultimate destiny, but it starts to make eternal life the question that I have to confront now. In the reality in front of me, in the choices in front of me, that the fact of Christ, that he has become incarnate, that he is risen, he is really real. And now I can encounter him right here. I can, when I'm doing my dishes, when I'm serving the poor, when I'm spending time with my kids, that is my service to Christ. And that's the living out of this question. So my whole life is really the answer to the question. And that's what we need to allow ourselves to be confronted with, so that when we start to actually desire more, we actually, and the beautiful thing is, it actually helps us to desire the things of the world more. Right? Giussani has this beautiful phrase. He had this thing when he talked to students. He goes, if you don't desire eternity, I understand you. You have no imagination. But a lot of people don't have imagination, so that's fine. You don't want eternity. But wouldn't you want to desire 100-fold today? Like, wouldn't you want to love your wife 100-fold? Because that's what Jesus means by the 100-fold. That's what he means by the abundant life. To increase our desire for the things of this world, because they are the means to encountering God. And so I desire my kids more. I desire my parishioners more. I desire whatever it is in my life. I desire it more because I see this is the place I encounter God. And I want that more because I see my answer, my actions to this question is the way I become a saint. And I've talked way too long. I monologue.
I'm thinking there's thoughts in my brain that there's really, in a sense, there's really no such thing as a well-balanced life.
Yeah.
That the idea of a well-balanced life is always in service for the thing you're actually passionate for.
Right.
So if you are a writer, for you, a well-balanced life is checking all these boxes so that you can put your heart into your writing. That's how I deal with my meals. That's why I do my exercise, so that my mind is fresh and ready to write. Very often when people talk about, or this ideal of a well-balanced life, religion becomes a part of the balance. So I do my Sunday thing so that I am a good citizen, I'm a member of the community, I assuage some of my guilt. I do that in service of something else. Most of the time, that service is to our own pain. That we do all these things so that we can feel less pain.
Yeah.
I do my job and I make money so I can buy things or enjoy things that numb my pain. Yeah. And so in that way, there's never any kind of living. My balance is just for this self-service that never satisfies. Whereas what you're saying and what you just summarized at the end there is that when Christ becomes the motivating factor, when he becomes the goal, it's instead of using these things as tools so that I can get to the point of just numbing my pain, Christ goes in there and begins to heal the pain. And the things that I use are no longer just they're good by themselves.
Yeah.
And this is something like you see this a lot in families where people will say, they'll say God, family, country, or whatever. They'll list the things because they feel like that's how they should list them. But really, they center their life around their family, because if their family life is perfect, that will numb the pain. But in so doing, you've turned your family into a tool and not what they actually are. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
So when your life is ordered around Christ, your family can be your family.
Exactly, because it puts it in the right order, right? Like it says, like, my family is actually the means to encountering Christ.
Right. And so really the key to a genuinely well-ordered life is an intense zeal for God. That will order everything else.
Right. And it will build up your desire for the things of this world. Like, it's the idea is it brings creation and heaven together more.
Yeah.
Right. Not fully. This world is a fallen world subject to sin and death. Absolutely. Okay. But this is part of the beginning of the kingdom.
Right. When we're talking about new heavens and a new earth, and we're talking about not the reincarnation. Oopsie. The resurrection. Thank you very much. You're not the only one with a mushy brain today. The resurrection is that.
Yeah.
Of created things and eternity coming together in the resurrected body.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Where's death no longer, this is the whole point. And so it begins in seed form in the church, and the church now becomes the place where the kingdom starts to take fruition. The church really is meant to be the place where the world is most fully itself. It is in its redeemed form. And so, when we take all this together, this question then, is Christianity real? It becomes very clear. This is the most reasonable question to ask in life. This is the highest use of our reason when we ask this question, because it is the question around which everything hinges. Because if your answer is no, then you can live a life of total narcissism, nihilism, hedonism, all the isms, right? Because nothing matters. Because this question is the question of meaning and purpose, of what am I created for? But if the question is Christianity real? And your answer is yes, it's not just a verbal or a propositional answer with our mind. It's an answer of life, of how I live as well. It's an answer. In other words, this is the answer of the whole person, right? I am giving my whole self to this. But it's always going to be through the things of creation. So like this kind of actually attaches to way back in the day of like the modernism episode, right? Because modernism is denial of mediation. Christianity says, no, God works through things. This is the principal way you can encounter him. And we keep on avoiding these things because we don't want to actually enter into self-sacrificing love, self-giving love. But that is the only way your desire is actually going to be increased. And so it begins to become real. Like this is the most reasonable question because this is the question around which all of existence revolves. And this is what I need to give myself to. And so it should inspire us and impel us to say, I am ready to take the question seriously. I'm ready to examine my life according to this question, because that's when the adventure of life begins. That's when we stop coasting. It's when we stop. It's when we, it's when we hit. That's when we just start to actually, we really do start to thrive. Not in the sense of like we live an abundant life in terms of material prosperity, but we're thriving in the life of the spirit. But here's the thing. If you avoid the question, if you put it to the side, if you continue to push it away, you're avoiding the very thing that brings eternal life. And so it becomes the way to reject God eternally. And so this is the thing we need to take seriously today. We need to ask over and over again, is Christianity real?
Yay.
There we go.
So
there we go. So that was kind of the sort of the homily. Actually, if you do want to see the homily, St. Peter's and Nanaimo has a YouTube channel now, so you can go check us out there. And my homilies we posted every day now, so it's there from All Saints Day. It's the first video on the feed there. But yeah, I just think it's a question that keeps on nagging me. So it's like it's been a personal thing, but it's also been like a deeper spiritual realization of how I live my life, that God is challenging me to something more. And I think it's the question that can really challenge all of us in a beautiful way, because it challenges us into love.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. Please, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, everywhere you can find your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well at Clerically Speaking. Please leave a review on those podcasting apps. Make it 5 stars. Say something nice. That helps other people find the podcast when they're searching for stuff. Please tell your friends about the podcast and tell your enemies too, because Jesus says we must love our enemies. You can find me on Twitter at FR Harrison.
You can find me praising our new insect overlords in the United States.
You can find us, the podcast, on Twitter at Clerical Pod. You can email us, clericallyspeaking@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube. We're on all the places. So go check us out, and we will see you all next week. God bless.
Peace.